Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. As always, it is Nick here, back for your daily crypto news and analysis. And today we are going to be talking about Ripple and XRP, as well as the vast majority of crypto and finance. And with that being said, I hope that you are all having a beautiful day or a beautiful night wherever you guys are out there in the world. Recently, Tucker Carlson actually just had an interview with Vladimir Putin, and this was one for the history books because we got a ton of insights on what is actually going on. There's a lot of things that are really kind of challenging what we are seeing on the Western side of the world in terms of media. And it was one to watch. It was over 2 hours long. And one of the biggest talking subjects that really kind of came up was the US dollar and what the US has been doing with the US dollar for a very long time. Obviously, one of the biggest topics on this channel has always been talking about the New World Order and the change in scenery around the reserve currency status. As we really look at what's going on outside of the US, obviously a pushback on the US dollar is happening. Dollar reserves held by a lot of these other nations, well, it's dropping drastically. And now, with the BRICS expanding rapidly, there is a big problem brewing, and I think that we need to address it, and I think that mainstream media will not report on it due to the fact that it is damning for the US, and they don't want us to know this. They just want to keep pushing the war idea, and again, that narrative only goes so far. Fear-mongering only goes so far. We really need to be aware of propaganda that is being spread, especially in terms of the Western media. So with that being said, I do want to push this video here, and I want to play it real quick for you guys because this is a big one to watch. So we actually have Vladimir Putin says the US government is killing the dollar with their own hands. Many countries, including major oil producers, are accepting payments for oil in Chinese yuan. And one thing that I will mention, this quote is actually pretty significant in terms of what the US has been doing. They are killing the dollar with their own hands. I mean, when you really print that much money, we go back to 2020 to now, I mean, a substantial percentage. I know that the last time that we looked at it was like over 40%. I think now probably over 50, 60%, maybe even more. That is the amount of percentage of dollars in circulation that were printed in just the last 4 years alone. I mean, it's insane, but this has caused the US dollar to become a lot weaker and value to drop significantly. Meanwhile, a lot of these nations outside of the US, when we are doing things like this, it starts tumbling their economy as well, especially third world countries. So a lot of these nations are done utilizing the US dollar. They want to push back against it, and that's where we start to see reserves dropping drastically. But when you have these larger nations, like for example, Brazil, Russia, India, even again, China, these are all major areas that we need to focus on because they are pushing back significantly. But listen closely to this video. It's about 4 minutes long, but it gives us a ton of insights on what's happening.
To use the dollar as a tool of foreign policy struggle is one of the biggest strategic mistakes made by the US political leadership. The dollar is the cornerstone of the United States power. I think everyone understands very well that no matter how many dollars are printed, they are quickly dispersed all over the world. Inflation in the United States is minimal. It's about 3 or 3.4%, which is, I think, totally acceptable for the US. But they won't stop printing. What does the debt of $33 trillion tell us about? It is about the emission. Nevertheless, it is the main weapon used by the United States to preserve its power across the world. As soon as the political leadership decided to use the US dollar as a tool of political struggle, a blow was dealt to this American power. I would not like to use any strong language, but it is a stupid thing to do and a grave mistake. Look at what is going on in the world. Even the United States allies are now downsizing their dollar reserves. Seeing this, everyone starts looking for ways to protect themselves. But the fact that the United States applies restrictive measures to certain countries, such as placing restrictions on transactions, freezing assets, etc., causes grave concern and sends a signal to the whole world. What did we have here? Until 2022, about 80% of Russian foreign trade transactions were made in US dollars and euros. US dollars accounted for approximately 50% of our transactions with third countries, while currently it is down to 13%. It wasn't us who banned the use of the US dollar. We had no such intention. It was decision of the United States to restrict our transactions in US dollars. I think it is complete foolishness from the point of view of the interests of the United States itself and its taxpayers, as it damages the US economy, undermines the power of the United States across the world. By the way, our transactions in yuan accounted for about 3%. Today, 34% of our transactions are made in rubles, and about as much, a little over 34% in yuan. Why did the United States do this? My only guess is self-conceit. They probably thought it would lead to full collapse, but nothing collapsed. Moreover, other countries, including oil producers, are thinking of and already accepting payments for oil in yuan. Do you even realize what is going on or not? Does anyone in the United States realize this? What are you doing? You are cutting yourself off. All experts say this. Ask any intelligent and thinking person in the United States what the dollar means for the US. You're killing it with your own hands.
Now, obviously, everyone is going to have their own thoughts when it comes to this, but at the end of the day, this is pretty much the truth. I mean, as we have witnessed a lot of the big moves being made outside of the US, this is true. You know, as we look at dominance around the US dollar, it has been dropping off a bit. Even when we go and look back in time, right? This is October of 2023. Russia says US will not be at the center of the new world order. And again, this is where we really look at what has recently happened, right? What's some of the events that have happened after we announced sanctions on Russia? All right, BRICS started to expand. But beyond that, what really started to happen? Well, here's the status of the US dollar as global reserve currency and US dollar exchange rates. Long, slow, uneven decline continues. This is January 1st of 2024. So over time, and we can actually go back to 2022. Look at 2022 with a steep downtrend. It went from roughly 60% down to almost 58%. Mind you, it's a 2% drop, and it might not seem too significant to most people, but when we are looking at the percentage of allocated reserves quarterly for the US dollar, that's pretty significant. Now, it did bounce back a little bit, but if we go back to just 2019, we were at almost 61%. Go back to 2014, where we were at 66%, changing to almost 58%. That's almost a drop of 10% over the course of roughly 8 years. But this is a trend that is going to continue, and I should remind all of you that the timeline on reserve currencies is roughly 100 years. We are past due that. But also, if we scroll down, we can actually see the US dollar assets held as foreign exchange reserves. Now, this one has grown significantly from 2014. But if we go back to 2020 and 2021, this has been continuously dropping. And it seems as though this is ready for another downtrend this quarter. So we need to watch this, and we need to watch these significant metrics closely. Here's US dollar share of global reserve currencies as well, percentage of allocated reserves year end. This goes all the way back to 1965. You can actually see inflation. We could also see euro notes arrive. You can see how this has dropped off a bit. And it's a significant drop off. And there's a lot more to look into. There's a ton of information within this article. But at the end of the day, as we really look at the US dollar as a global reserve currency, it is slowly but surely eroding. Now, does that mean that overnight we're going to start to see major changes and we're going to see the US dollar collapse to zero or anything like that? No. But I do believe that we are nearing a time in history where the US and the US dollar will soon be something that is not as dominant. That kind of pushes us into the idea of becoming a third world country. And I say that with a grain of salt, because are we going to get to the point where the US is a third world country? Not necessarily, but I do think that the gross amount of money printing and us inflating the dollar for so damn long has severely put a lot of pressure on the US dollar as a reserve currency, and we are now ushering into a complete reset. If we go back in time a little bit to April of 2023, we actually had Trump mentioning things around this. He actually stated that China is trying to replace the dollar as a number one currency. Now, a lot of people thought that this wasn't happening, but if you can separate politics from just clear thoughts, then at that point in time, you could actually see that this was a thing that we should have focused on, and it was actually happening. The BRICS were actually already in discussions around gold-backed currencies and things like that, but there's a few quotes actually from Trump that I will mention. Number one, China is trying to displace the US dollar as the number one currency throughout the world. If this happens, and under Biden's leadership, it probably will. This would be the biggest defeat for our country in its history. Our currency is crashing and will soon no longer be the world standard, which will be our greatest defeat, frankly, in 200 years. There will be no defeat like that. That will take us away from being even a great power. Now, again, is all of this happening because of Biden? It's Biden. No. In fact, it's not even politics-wise. It's what we have been doing since getting rid of the gold standard, and even prior, since we've actually incorporated the Federal Reserve into the system, the dollar has lost tremendous amounts of value, which kind of shows you that central banking is a Ponzi scheme. It's a scam, and it's a terrible way of working finance. Beyond that, right, the fractional reserve system, we've talked about it, also a scam, a Ponzi. 2008, massive crash. Most people lost a massive amount of wealth. Most people got wiped out. Guess what? Big banks, they came in, they ate, and they got even fatter. And when I say that, I mean they got even wealthier. So when we really look at what's happening here, I don't think that we bounced back since 2008, which I mentioned in many videos in the past. And I do think that it's kind of looming over us at this point. There's a lot of pressure. And a lot of people are predicting that the US dollar will die. I mean, there's been so many discussions around this. This is Robert Kiyosaki, and he's citing BRICS nations' plan to launch a gold-backed currency. The problem is that, listen, everyone is wrong on this. Everyone. Nobody is going to be right on this in terms of the timeline, when it's going to happen. The US dollar will not die necessarily, but I do think that it will cease to be the reserve currency. It's not going to happen this year, and it most likely won't happen next year. But over the course of the next few years, we will see this significant change happen. And not enough people are aware of this. Mainstream media is not telling us. They're not warning us at all. They're instead talking about the fear-mongering, war, pushing that agenda. At the same time that I think that we need to focus on the bigger picture. There's a great post back in February 7th, back from Black Swan Capitalist. This is Clive Thompson, and we actually have the currency reset is inching closer every day, yet many are still in denial. You need to break free from the dollar-centric mindset and position yourself for where money's heading. Think physical assets like gold and silver and digital currencies such as XRP and XLM. And although, yes, it could be very easy to get caught up in XRP and just XRP. It's a lot of digital currencies. In fact, the digital landscape right now is changing greatly. But listen closely to this video.
Spend the money now, get it out of your bank account while you still can, quickly and easily, and try and bring your balances down to a level where you're not going to be too worried if they tell you you're bottlenecked and you can't move it into the new currency.
You mean money in the bank, correct? Don't keep too much in the bank.
Yes, exactly. If we have a reset, we have a crisis, and suddenly they close the doors and they say the whole economy is run on the central bank digital currency, but you're bottlenecked. You can't now move the old currency into the new one. The old currency is effectively either defunct today or it's going to be withering away. You want to have less of that old currency left, or whatever they don't convert for you.
Well,
spend the money.
Now, obviously, you can question this advice. My main focus point is not keeping a large amount of wealth in banks. I've talked about it in the past. There's so many other areas that you should be actually focused on with this. There's great IRAs out there for gold and silver, even IRAs around XRP, XLM, and other digital currencies. But also diversifying your wealth outside of the bank is so damn crucial because you never know what's going to happen, right? A lot of people talked about ICE 9. A lot of people think about, wiping out bank accounts or bailing in bank accounts. That's a possibility. Those things can happen. At the end of the day, I do think that we are headed towards a currency reset. I think that we're headed towards a much larger reset than what most people are anticipating. And one of the big things that we have been addressing is also Operation Sandman, which is technically what BRICS is becoming. It's allegedly a collaboration of 100 plus nations in agreement to simultaneously sell off their US Treasury holdings. It will be sent back to the US to collapse the dollar. And what this will essentially be is hyperinflation. Because we printed so much damn money that we're already inflated. There's a lot of money outside of the US that will essentially recirculate back into the US, causing even more inflation, building upon the inflation that we already have, which will ultimately lead to hyperinflation. And that's where a large amount of things start to collapse. Banking as we know it collapses. And this will essentially usher us into the currency reset, the great reset, if you will. Now, a lot of this is speculation, sure, but a lot of this we already have the truth behind it. We already have facts to support the idea that Operation Sandman is not a joke. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's actually something that is happening. Like, this is real. And BRICS are spearheading this. That's why they say that the US will not be at the center of this new world order. Now, do I support the BRICS? Do I support Russia in all of this? No, but I will say I do agree with the idea that the US has been utilizing the US dollar for far too long as a financial weapon, and they have been weaponizing SWIFT as well. And if I was these other nations, I would also be fed up with it, and I would be dropping the dollar. And that's exactly what's happening here. It's as simple as that. And I really think that we need to look at the repercussions from all of this, because if all these other nations outside of the US are starting to pull away and starting to say, hey, let's come together and do this, meaning Operation Sandman, the US is in a major, major problem now. And it's also going to accelerate and lead to the currency reset, which already we have the solution for. AKA, they're trying to push the CBDC narrative. But outside of all of that, I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because more free content. You guys more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. Also, if you guys do want to go check out DCENT Wallet right now, they are giving away 24 XRP free for anyone that does purchase a DCENT Wallet through my link down in the description below, as well as in the comments below. Also, you can enter to win 2024 XRP right now until the 25th of the month. All you have to do is purchase, go to their website, click the top link on the top, and then also fill out the form on the bottom, and you are set. So with that being said, thanks for watching. This has been Nick. Peace out.